All right, Mike.
What's up? Yo, did we ever give props to the composer of our theme song?
It is my stepson who goes by the name of, or at least his producer name is Home Run.
Okay.
And then his buddy actually had the vocoder. He has like the actual thing to do the vocoding on the audio on the vocals. And his name is I forget what his actual his Instagram or music handle, but his real name is Jude. I don't know if that's his parents were Beatles fans or whatever, but um yeah, so Home Run, and then they did it together. I was like, hey, here's what we want. I want something like that sounds like this, and then get the 50 for 50 chanted in the background, and they did it. So turned it around pretty quick too.
Find out we got a little Teddy Riley in the house.
Exactly. All right. So, Mike, what are we doing today?
We are talking about the Beastie Boys.
We'll say one of the reasons why I wanted to do a project like this is because there's a lot of artists that I know. There's a lot of artists that I know, and there are a lot of artists I know like so well, like I don't really need to learn anything about them anymore.
Right.
The Beasties are not on that list for me. Okay, let me give you my Beastie Boys origin story from when I'm a kid.
Okay.
So I have older cousins. Like my oldest cousin is about 10 years older than me, and then it kind of goes like 10, 7, 4, and then it's me. And so anything they were into, I was kind of aware of. And so the Beastie Boys are, when they come into play, I'm still like 10 years old or whatever. So I'm not really of the age to be like, oh, the Beastie Boys are cool. I'm just like a little kid.
Mm-hmm.
And so my cousins, though, are very aware of the Beastie Boys, and they're kind of into them a little bit. And, just the whole, I wouldn't say into the Beastie Boys necessarily, but just into kind of punk a little bit, into some of the new age stuff. And MTV plays the Beastie Boys a lot. And so my dad was like, these guys are knuckleheads. Like, these dudes are not going to be doing anything with their life. Like, look at them. Like, listen to these lyrics. They're not even, they're not even all that great. And so I grew up thinking like, oh yeah, this is just frat boy stuff. Like it's just here and it'll go away. But and I think this is the most important part of this Beastie Boy story is they realized very early how that was going to cap them as artists. And they very quickly tried to adjust. And, we're going to talk about the album that people think is, depending on what you want to think is their best album. Like, I don't, you can have lots of different favorite Beasties albums, but like, and we've talked about this with an episode that has not yet dropped, which is the Huey Lewis episode where Huey Lewis goes mainstream, tries to take it back a little bit, and the second he does, you never hear about him really ever again.
Right.
And that is really the risk with the album we're going to talk about, which is Paul's Boutique, is they went from insane popularity to I'm not really feeling this and we have to change. And industry rule number 4080, which we'll talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And then they recreate themselves. And here's my favorite part of this. They take accountability for that first album. As popular as it was, you can talk to Beastie Boys fans today. They still love License to Ill. License to Ill is so memorable. You can play the beginning of a bunch of songs, and I'm like, oh, I know exactly what's coming. Very popular. But those guys, you could tell they had to step back from the themes of that album. Right. So that is my favorite part of this Beastie Boys story.
It doesn't happen very often, right? Like, License to Ill was such a phenomenon of a record And so when that record came out, I was living in Michigan, and every like 10, 11 year old at the time was messing with that album because hip hop had just kind of started really asserting itself as a commercial force. And the Beastie Boys were white. And I grew up in I spent my time in Michigan because it was a 3 year period in like a very integrated school system. And, the suburban white kids and the suburban black kids were all like, yo, this is great. Um, and I think because their older brothers were, deeply into the Beastie Boys. And, um, you know, as you dig deeper into their history, you realize that License to Ill was really like the Beastie Boys playing a role
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to being their authentic selves. And I think they quickly realized that there was like a time limit on that role. And maybe there was like a personal sacrifice too in playing that role. And they decided they didn't want to make that sacrifice anymore. So they reversed course and it worked out for them over time. Um, which I think is, one of the unique and interesting things. But like you said, the other unique and interesting thing is that they were like, yo, this wasn't us. Or this was a version of us that we played for a joke and we really aren't like that in real life. And we didn't like it as it was happening, and we're going to take accountability and apologize for it. And again, that is not something that happens in art very often, particularly commercially successful art. It doesn't happen in real life very often, you know.
And look, I'm not an apologist here. This comes directly from them.
Yeah.
Their audiobook is awesome, and of course, with MCA no longer being with us, this is very much an ad rock and Mike D retelling of this story. But
even MCA when he was alive, and I'm just like grabbing
yeah,
my copy of the Beastie Boys book.
It's awesome.
Yes. And even MCA when he was alive, really, I think did more than the other two to really kind of reverse that narrative.
Yes, for sure. But what I was going to say is they in this book, they fall on the sword. Like there is a kind of like Rick Rubin tried to kind of move us in this direction, but they're like, hey, we wanted to name our album something that is really bad.
It was,
and
the F slur would have been in the album title.
Yeah, not the fuck word,
right?
it's
Yeah,
the
not
other,
slur, not cuss.
Yes. So they both were like, hey, that was a long time ago. We were stupid kids. We grew up and became adults. We took accountability, and we want to tell you this was the truth. Like this was not created. This was us. And at the same time, they're just young teenage kids, and they literally blow up overnight. Like, how do you deal with that? Mike D and Ad Rock should be counseling young artists in here are all of the things that are going to happen to you if you really get famous, and here's how to kind of get through it all, because those dudes coming out of who they are now as grown-ass adults, they came out of it very well. Like,
right. And I think some of that is privilege. Although, look at Mac Miller, but I think some of that has to do with them being white. I think some of it also has to do with them being middle class people and not having to, I think what happens to a lot of folks, and it's not just a black or brown thing, because I think about Britney too, is, you come out and all of a sudden you're super successful and you are now the breadwinner for your entire family at a young age. And, your mama wants some money, your daddy wants some money, your cousins want some money. Like you're all of a sudden you have this like unintentional entourage of people that you are the CEO of kind of unintentionally. And it doesn't sound like the Beastie Boys ever had like that sort of like blood sucking of their crew or their family, at least the people that they were closest to, because the people that they were closest to had their own stuff.
Yeah. All right. So, by the way, shout out Nick who's hanging out with us
What
in
up,
the
Nick?
chat. I didn't know that that was Nick's YouTube handle, by the way. Travis Bickle 910.
Oh,
For those who don't know, I do own some Nick music there, some Headcase
some
music.
Headcase music. Shout out
Yeah.
MC Headcase.
All right, so let's actually go back to the year of 1989
Yes.
because while in 1986, like I said, I was 10. By the time of 1989, I'm very aware of hip hop. I'm very aware of the surroundings of hip hop, and I'm very aware that the Beastie Boys are back. But what I didn't know, and we'll tell this story in a little bit, I didn't know why they were gone and where they went and
Mm,
how close we were to maybe not even getting this album. So,
yeah.
where were you in 1989?
So 1989 would have been the beginning would have been eighth grade, and I would have started high school that fall. Right around the time Paul's Boutique came out. I remember, the first time I heard "Hey Ladies," it was actually probably August of 1989, and I was in Florida. My grandmother had a second home, there in a town called Lehigh Acres, Florida, and was just kind of like chilling out, 13-year-old, getting some sun, thinking I was a badass, riding bikes, doing that kind of stuff. But that was the summer of '89 for me.
So it's kind of funny because another episode that is not yet out is the MC Hammer
Mm,
um episode, and like 1989 for me is a really big sports year. It is the Giants are in the World Series, sadly losing to the Oakland A's in what people remember as the Earthquake World Series.
Shout out to Will Clark and Mark
Kevin Mitchell
McGuire,
and
Kevin
Jose
Mitchell,
Canseco.
Canseco. Yeah, man. I was deep into baseball around that time. So
Yeah, yeah. Um, and so 49ers obviously and with the Warriors, the Run TMC era. So my sports world is just humming and I'm thinking like, oh man, like I'm about to be like the Bay is about to blow up sports wise. Now soon thereafter, Run TMC dissolves and the Giants don't make it back to the World Series for like another 13 years or whatever.
uh,
So it didn't exactly happen that way.
shout out
40,
also to the Bad Boys, who won the NBA championship that
oh
year.
yeah.
I mean, I can claim Detroit a little bit. So, and there hasn't been a Knicks championship in my lifetime. So I'm just gonna kind of uh I'm gonna take that as a personal thing, even though I wasn't living there at the time.
For this is our first going off tangent here, but did you ever read Spike Lee's book about his Knicks fandom?
No,
That book is awesome, but it was
I gotta
also
check that
written
out.
like 30 years ago or something. It's a long time ago. But it's awesome, like, cause he's got such, memory of that stuff, you know? Like, he has memory of films, music, and sports like
Right.
nobody's business.
And he
Okay,
was alive for both the championships.
so we're both teenagers,
Very early teenagers.
very but also open to trends, things move in one direction, we wanna be cool, we wanna listen to it, and so that's what 1989 kind of represents to me.
Yeah.
So, from a pop culture standpoint or from a music standpoint, the year of 1989. Now you're gonna have to tell me what this is all about because I remember this, but I don't exactly remember the what the why. January 14th, 1989, Paul McCartney releases Back in the USSR exclusively in the USSR. Bootleg copies sell for as much as $1,000 in the United States. What the hell was this all about?
I mean, it's cold. It's the middle of the Cold War, or the end of the Cold War, actually, because there was a lot of change happening politically at that time, and Paul McCartney's British. Rock rock stars from the U.S. and the U.K. did not typically travel to Russia, because Russia did not allow that very often. I think Elton John might have been one of the first rock stars to play Russia in like the late '70s. So for Paul McCartney to perform over there, it was a huge, huge deal. And I'm actually not sure why they didn't release that initially in the US. Um, but again, it was a very unique performance because it took place in a part of the world that generally did not allow uh um music from the Western world to be performed there.
All right. So the next thing here is January 23rd. I'm gonna say it right now. Free James Brown. James Brown is sentenced in Georgia to 6 years in jail in connection with a police chase through 2 different states.
Yeah,
Do you
dude.
remember this police chase?
I remember it. I'm gonna try to remember the details that I know correctly. There's actually a very good book on James Brown called The One, which everybody should read. I guess, like, James Brown was high all the time during that time, and I think he was using like PCP, which, like, I don't really know what PCP is, but apparently that stuff messes you up real, real hard. And you know, the cops came after him for something. Dude went on a high speed chase. Allegedly, like, they shot his tires out and he was driving on rims.
He's not gonna go very far there.
Yeah. If you want an idea of the stuff that James Brown was putting in his body around that time, there's an interview that you can find on YouTube where he is just like wilding out talking to this female reporter. I just go, if you've never seen it, go on YouTube, you will have a good laugh. Say no to drugs.
Yeah. And then there was a Eddie Murphy special where he did a character and it was just people outside of the prison just chanting "Free James Brown."
Free James Brown.
That's what I remember. Okay, January 27th, Michael Jackson ends the Bad World Tour in Los Angeles. February 22nd, the 31st annual Grammy Awards hosted by Billy Crystal. George Michael's Faith wins Album of the Year. Bobby McFerrin's Don't Worry, Be Happy wins both Record and Song of the Year. And Tracy Chapman wins Best New Artist. What's the beef with Don't Worry, Be Happy?
I really, really don't like that song. Like, if you were to count down Mike's 10 least favorite songs of all time, Don't Worry, Be Happy would be on that list.
So there will not be a Bobby McFerrin 50 for 50 is what you are saying.
Damn right.
Okay. March 21st, Madonna's Like a Prayer music video, taped in December of '88, attracts criticism for its use of Catholic Church iconography and for the use of cross-burning imagery, but also garners praise for its interpretation of discrimination, rape, and faith. Pepsi drops Madonna as a spokesperson out of fear the video will cause religious groups to boycott the company.
Madonna knew what she was doing, and she kept the bag.
Pepsi being cowards, man.
Seriously.
So April 12th. Now, this is interesting, and I was wondering if this is really where this nickname for Michael Jackson is created. April 12th, Michael Jackson is named King of Pop after receiving the Soul Train Heritage Award. Now, is this where the name starts and it just becomes his brand?
So, yes, Elizabeth Taylor is presenting him with an award at the Soul Train Music Awards. And she says, in my estimation, he is the true king of pop, rock, and soul. And I am, I don't know this for sure. I'm fairly certain that Michael and or his people wrote that speech themselves. So Mike wanted, Elvis was called the king of rock and roll. Michael wanted something, so he became the king of pop.
I guess so. Okay.
And no shade to Mike.
No. the king of
Mike
pop
is the king of pop.
It's a fantastic branding, and it's master marketing is what it is.
Absolutely.
All right, May 1st, somewhere in California, it doesn't say, U.S. jewelry store employees called the police reporting a suspicious person hanging around their store. The person turns out to be Michael Jackson shopping in disguise. Is this true?
I have heard this story before. Imagine
in disguise.
The cops roll up like, oh no, hi, I'm Michael Jackson.
What, like, I'm assuming he was wearing like something that made him look weird is probably why people got freaked out. Like
I
he's
mean,
wearing something over his head and looked like a cousin it or something.
yeah,
Like
he's wearing something that made him not look like Michael Jackson.
what's that? Was it Ghosts? Was Ghosts that movie where he dressed up in makeup and played that different character?
Yeah, yeah.
That's what he should have went to the jewelry store as.
Oh man.
Okay, July 29th, the Bee Gees perform in the US for the first time in 10 years as part of their One for All World Tour. So one of the brothers had passed away by this time already?
Well, it was Andy Gibb, who was never a member of the Bee Gees, but he was a solo artist. Was kind of a big deal for a minute in the late '70s. But he passed away in 1988. He was only like 32, which was kind of
Yeah.
crazy. But yeah, so I mean, the Bee Gees never really. I mean, they had already kind of started to like come back at that point, but I think that was their first U.S. tour since like the Saturday Night Fever days.
And then we're fast forwarding here because for some reason my Wikipedia list just makes some crazy jumps. December 23rd, Ice Cube leaves NWA after financial problems and several conflicts with their manager Jerry Heller and the group's founder Eazy-E. By this time, Cube has been recording his solo debut album, which will be released the next year.
Mm-hmm.
When did Boys in the Hood come out?
91.
Okay.
Yeah, like summer of 90 or early summer 91.
Because this is basically the time where if you didn't know before, you knew who Ice Cube was about to be. Like he's kind of all over the place in this 1991.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the Beastie Boys, and we'll go through the origin story. We'll go through kind of the creation of the first album, their transition to their second album. We won't talk too much about their later career, but we will talk about MCA. We will talk about the albums as far as how they did commercially, and we'll do our favorite Grammys Redux segment.
Word.
And then not on this episode, but on our next episode for the top 5, I think our top 5 is going to be all over the place because they have so many songs for one. And as I get older, and I can say this right now, as I am a grown up here, I think my favorite Beastie's album is probably their least favorite album.
We might have to put a pin in that. Like, I'm very curious.
Well, I'll say it right now. To the
Okay.
Five Boroughs is my favorite Beastie Boys album.
I don't know why they don't like that album.
They don't like it. They said, and this
That's
is
such a dope record.
This is in their album. This is in their book. They said it was their first album post 9/11. And so they had a lot of things to say because that album comes out like in the mid 2000s, right?
Yeah, I think 2004.
So they're holding back a lot of stuff, and they thought it was too preachy and maybe not commercial enough.
I mean, and not to go too far to the left. I mean, to the Five Boroughs, I think is the most hip hop of the later Beastie Boys albums.
That's why it's my favorite.
And it's a very like old school hip hop album, like they're doing routines and stuff like that. And I don't think the Beastie Boys as they aged became a bit more message oriented. And, look, as a New Yorker, 9/11 was a very difficult thing to make sense of. I still don't know if I've made sense of it. So to be affected by that and to make an album about it, I think was the natural thing. And it just felt like it was a throwback and it felt kind of loose and charming. And I don't know. I mean, it's not my favorite Beastie Boys album, but it's also not my least favorite Beastie Boys album. I still go back to it every now and then.
They just released like a new vinyl.
Yeah, I saw.
It's like 3 records or something, and I don't need all the $50 worth or whatever it is.
They don't like it, but they're happy to make money from it.
Totally. Okay, so let's talk about their origin story here. So the Beasties as we know it were kind of putting their groups together or putting the group together, but only one who was Mike D was a part of the original group that was created before the Beasties called the Young Aborigines. What's interesting, and I'm actually interested in your thoughts on the Kate Schellenbach story, because she is actually she does her own voice for the chapters about her in the audiobook, which I thought was fascinating.
Mm,
And you could tell as they're telling the story, she's part of the original group, which becomes the Beastie Boys. By calling it the Beastie Boys, there's a little bit of an alienation there. She's a woman, she's not a boy.
right.
And then she kind of gets pushed out, and she was one of the OGs, which was really interesting. And her hearing her tell her story about what happened and why, and how the I think she herself blames Rick Rubin for a lot of it. She does not like that dude, and just she gets aced out of the group. Those dudes they're not cool because she thinks that they're kind of dicks at this point.
Hmm.
And then to kind of come back and go like, okay, I get it. But she also then has her own career as a
Right.
successful artist. So what do
Right.
you think about the whole Kate piece of this?
I mean, it's. I mean, it sucked for Kate, obviously, in the beginning. Um, the members of the Beastie Boys came up in kind of the early '80s, New York City, which, I mean, I was a very little child in the early '80s, but the way that I always hear it described, it was just this melting pot of scenes. So you had, hip hop and reggae and funk and disco, and then punk and hardcore and new wave, and everybody was kind of like hopping from spot to spot to spot, and especially if you're a kid, you're just going to have like a diverse array of influences. So they came together, they had this like hardcore band, and eventually Rick Rubin became a part of the picture because, he had founded Def Jam at this point. They were putting out rap records. He wanted the Beastie Boys to be, I guess, more of a traditional rap group. And, Rick, you know, is apparently an evolved human now. How much of that is real and how much of that is fake is, we're not him. We can't decide that. But it does sound like back in the day, he was this very misogynist, kind of male chauvinist dude from Long Island.
Mhm.
Um, and, you know, whether it came out of sexism or wanting the group to be more commercial or whatever it was, Kate got kicked out of the band, or however it happened. I mean, and as we said earlier about taking accountability, once the Beastie Boys had kind of like righted the ship and were like a commercial force again, and they got their own label called Grand Royal, one of the first groups they signed was a group called Luscious Jackson, of which Kate Schellenbach was a member. So I feel like they kind of did her right in the end.
Yes.
um so yeah, I mean, it's a story that I think ends well. But we're all young and stupid, and we all do young and stupid things when we're young and stupid, and I think it takes a lot for someone to come back around and be like, yo, we messed up, like, we apologize. And it also takes a big person to accept that apology and kind of like understand when you're hurt that maybe the people that did that to you were operating in a different space back then, and they've turned a new leaf.
So, like you said, the Young Aborigines at this point are not a rap group. They are a hardcore punk band.
Right.
And so one of the guys leaves, and then MCA, Adam Yauch, joins to be the guy on the bass. And one of the guys who stays, his name's John Barry, he coins the term Beastie Boys. So at this point, it's MCA, it's Mike D, it's Kate, and it's this guy, John Barry.
Right.
So we made fun of acronyms in the past. Do you know what Beastie stands for?
Oh man, I used to. I know there's like anachronistic states of some shit. I don't remember.
It stands for Boys Entering Anarchistic States Toward Internal Excellence.
You ever heard of the term backronym?
No.
It's like when a word is invented and then in retrospect people are like, oh yeah, it's an acronym, it means this thing. I feel like that's what happened with Beastie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that's what, and then Mike D later said it's just a silly name that they thought sounded kind of tough.
right.
Okay, so that pivot to hip hop comes from 1983. They record a song, and this is your New York roots. I'm wondering how much you know about this, which is they record a song called Cookie Puss. Do you know what Cookie Puss was? Have you
Hell
seen a
yes.
Cookie Puss?
I
Okay,
have seen a Cookie
perfect.
Puss. So, all right. First of all, New York City, there's an ice cream chain called Carvel. Carvel still exists. Like I live maybe half a mile away from a Carvel. I don't think they make the Cookie Puss anymore, but the Cookie Puss, if I remember correctly, was basically like an ice cream cake, chocolate chip cookie concoction, something like that. Um, I mean, I'm also diabetic, so I couldn't have a Cookie Puss if I wanted to. But it was like an ice cream cake type thing. And they used to,
Mhm.
Carvel had a lot of commercials on the air on local television stations, and, they would advertise the Cookie Puss. So if you lived in New York City or, in the tri state area at all, like, and you grew up during a certain era, you knew exactly what the Cookie Puss was.
The only reason I know what the Cookie Puss is outside of this album is Howard Stern. Back in the day, there was a Cookie Puss story, and they're like making fun of people for buying Cookie Puss as a gift for like their mom or something. And that's the
But
only
that's
time
what
I'd
you
ever heard about it.
did. That's what you did. It was like, if you had like a birthday party or whatever, they would buy the cake from Carvel, and you would have a Cookie Puss on your birthday. And I'm gonna look this up to uh, tell you exactly what was in it. Um, yeah, it's an ice cream cake. Um, and it's got like an alien. Right. Okay. So the cake is fashioned with the space alien that uses cookies for eyes and an ice cream cone for the nose.
Awesome.
And Cookie Puss was born on planet birthday. So there's hence your birthday cake explanation there.
So they crank called the Carvel ice cream shop. They recorded it and they released it as a song, which they then realize starts getting played by some local DJs at clubs and such, which is still wild to me. Like,
Yeah.
um, so then at this point, John Barry leaves and Ad Rock comes in. And so now the three the three guys who we know the Beasties as are in the group at this point. And so they meet, like we said, they meet Rick Rubin running Def Jam. I think they were saying that one of the ins to Rick was, I want to say that they were like trying to play some live shows and he may have had some equipment that they could use
Right.
because he's kind of on the up and up with that stuff. Uh Rick Rubin and Russell Simmons crafted this like bad boys of rap. I see it more as like frat boys of rap. Drinking beer, kind of, slapping girls on their butts and that kind of imagery for what the group is. And their big breakthrough, and I love this story, by the way, they opened for Madonna
On the Like a Virgin tour.
And so the Madonna's people call Russ and they're like, "Hey man, like we want Run DMC to open for us." And Run DMC was doing their own thing, I think, at this point, so they weren't available.
I think
And
the story is that Run DMC Run DMC wanted too much money.
that's what it was,
Yeah.
exactly. So then they go, "What about the Fat Boys?" And Russ is like, "Nah, they're busy." The Fat Boys were not even on Def Jam
Or managed by Rush Management.
or managed by Russ. And so then he's like, "But I have this group that will basically play for Madonna for like $2 and a biscuit. And that's how the Beastie Boys ended up on the tour with Madonna.
Which is crazy.
It's
Crazy.
so at this point I think they're recording their album. Like they didn't even really they did not have the album yet, so they're doing songs to open the show from stuff that they had recorded before, right? Like not licensed to ill stuff yet.
Right.
So I have a story, and buddy sent it to me who was in that scene, and he's a little bit older than us, so it kind of the timeline makes sense. And when he first sent it to me, I was like, is he pulling my leg? What's going on? And then I watched the Beastie Boys, or read the Beastie Boys book, and then I also watched the Apple TV movie, which is like they just recorded like a stage act.
I was there.
No way.
Yep, I was in the audience.
That thing is really fun. That was
It was a
really
lot of fun.
really well done.
Yep.
So he sends me this email, and he's like, and so after watching and reading, I kind of correlate, it kind of connects. So I'm gonna read his email, and we'll just call him Jay. This person.
All right.
And he wrote the story, and it's called Rick Rubin Brings the Beastie Boys to My Booth, and it doesn't go well. So he wrote, I got to know legendary producer Rick Rubin through my buddy Scott Koenig. Scott worked briefly for Rick as an assistant and then moved on to Rush Management. I hung with Rick a few times and even went to CMJ with him. I don't know what that means.
CMJ is was a music festival that happened in New York City, ended like 7 years ago.
Then he writes, Rick watched me DJ at L'Amour one Slayer night and came up to the booth to tell me how much he appreciated my work. He said he never saw a rock DJ with MC skills, and he really appreciated how I interacted with the audience. That meant a lot coming from Rick, a man who was cementing his legacy at the time. Rick was very unique, and then we went to CMJ together. I kidded, you must have 1,000 business cards ready to give out. He replied he didn't have any because they were too uptown. And then he wrote, Rick is weird, but cool. And then he wrote, the next time Slayer played, Scott told me Rick was bringing the Beastie Boys with him, and Rick wanted me to meet them. This was prior to the album dropping. I knew of the Beasties, but not a lot. I was told they were a punk rap hybrid, and I had a Beasties tee with Get Off My DICK on the back, but that was it. I was invited to be part of the Fight for Your Right video and looked forward to meeting them. Rick comes up to the booth and asks if the Beastie Boys can come up. I tell security to let them up, and 5 of us are in the booth. Rick says, show them what you can do on the mic. I waited for the song to end, did some spiel that pumped up the crowd, and mentions I was with Rick, Slayer's producer, and he had his new band in the booth. Everyone's focused on the booth. One of the Beasties grabs the mic and starts over-modulating gibberish that no metalhead could understand, and others join in. The Slayer crowd starts booing, and I'm now fighting them for the mic. We're literally pushing each other and almost come to blows, and I finally wrestle the mic back and say over the DJ system, I have no idea what the F just happened. I told them to leave, and Rick goes, that was great, and leaves after them. And that was exactly what Rick wanted. He wanted them to cause anarchy and a buzz. I was pissed, and I wasn't good at hiding my moods back then. It wound up being the last time I spoke to Rick, and I never went to the video. Scott and I later laughed about it, though, because in hindsight, it was hysterical. I was a huge fan of them once I heard the album and wish I knew what to expect. Maybe it would have gone down better. But after I said F Rick and had a buddy make me business cards like George Jefferson, I am moving on the uptown. So when he sent me that story, because I told him we were doing this episode, and he's like, I got a Beastie story for you. And I was like, okay, dude, I don't know, I'm not so sure about this. But they said that Rick Rubin, who was a pro wrestling fan, wanted to basically make them to be like the Roddy Piper of rap. And
Right.
so now that thing checks out.
It makes sense.
And I'm like, how could I even have thought that my buddy was not being real with me? Because he has a lot of stories, by the way. He was in a lot of different scenes back then. But so that was kind of amazing, because they admitted, they're like, yeah, like he wanted us to be pro wrestling heels. Like we didn't like wrestling, but Rick did. And so he used that to market us as like these pro wrestling bad boys.
That sounds on brand.
Okay, so License to Ill. I think the whole album's like created in Rick Rubin's New York. Where'd he go? NYU.
He went to NYU. Was Def
In
Jam
his
was run out of his dorm room,
so in the dorm room, this is where this album is created.
which is crazy. And I mean, shout out first of all to connect the dots to a previous episode of this show that we've done. The beat for LL's first single, "I Need a Beat," was made by Ad Rock in Rick Rubin's dorm room.
Wow.
Actually, Ad Rock discovered LL Cool J.
That is amazing, and I
Yeah,
know they're still tight
yeah,
because LL always puts him over. He's
yeah,
always talking nicely about him.
yeah.
So Rick saw the Beasties not just as rappers necessarily, but this bridge between punk rock and like this kind of new burgeoning hip hop scene. And I was wondering, because Rick is white, hip hop is predominantly majority black. The idea of bringing white guys into this genre, and the genre is still being created. It's not like the lines are necessarily drawn, but it is
Right.
going, we know this early on that it's just not going to be a bunch of white kids rapping. Like that's not going to exist in hip hop. Like, what do you think was the marketing of them? What do you think it was like? I mean, because we've seen it in the history of pop culture, the great white hope, right? In boxing, it was like, who the one who's going to make the most money is the one white guy who can actually beat all of these other different minorities of boxers, and that was
Right.
kind of how the sport was sold. Like, is there some great white hope in this story?
100%. 100%. I mean, hip hop was very much in its infancy. And to be fair, the first couple of years of hip hop, it was exclusively a black and Latino thing. And then kind of as it started to expand out into it expanded out into parts of New York City that were not like the Bronx or Queens, where like the downtown art scene and white people did get involved. So you would have Fab Five Freddy and Africa Bambaataa and all of these like hip hop dudes hanging out with like artists like Keith Haring, or people like Madonna, like who had definitely had a connection to sort of like early 80s New York, downtown New York hip hop scene, and Blondie, and like all of these different things. So it got integrated from an audience standpoint, at least in New York City, where some of the conventional rules regarding race don't really aren't as prominent as they are in other parts of the country, um, pretty quickly. But I think Rick, to an extent, and definitely Russell, saw the Beastie Boys as like, hey, this is how we bring hip hop to Middle America and make a lot of money by, instead of these, you look at like Run DMC, whatever, and three black dudes with gold chains and hats on in Ohio and Oklahoma and Minnesota are scary as hell. But put three white dudes in the same outfit doing the same music, and then there's an identifiability with Little Billy and Joey in Oklahoma and Indiana. So I think there was definitely a great white hope behind it. I don't think they expected that album to blow up the way it did, but I definitely think there was forethought in putting a white rap group out and then making them kind of like cartoony and exaggerated, and also leaning on you know like classic rock and like hair metal and the stuff that was supposed to be real hot in white middle America at that time.
Okay, so License to Ill is along kind of the same style of what Run DMC was doing, the same similar rap style. I think Run is helping them with lyrics and
Yeah,
such,
he
and
wrote. Yeah,
helping them kind of like, here's how we do it. This is how you guys should do it as well. Um, and then the album just goes insane. Like, is it the first hip hop album to debut or to go to number one?
It was the first rap album to hit #1 on the charts.
which is amazing. And
Yeah.
it's still it went diamond, I think, right?
Yeah.
And it's
It's
still
still one
the
of the biggest selling rap albums of all time.
so the idea of the second album, if you are if you are Russ, you're like, okay, we just need to make part 2. Like, this is how we're gonna keep things going, keep the boat floating. We're gonna go back to #1. Let's do whatever part 2 is of License to Ill. And these dudes were not about that life. I think Adam Yauch quits the band without even telling these guys. He just bounces and he goes and starts doing other stuff. And they don't actually like they're still performing, but they don't actually create any music. And I guess by what their contract says, that allows Def Jam to withhold royalties from the album because they're not actively making a second album, which sounds like gibberish to me. I don't know what
It's
the hell's going on there.
read your contract before you sign it. If I remember the story in the book correctly, they were like, Russell tried to sue us for not making a follow-up album quickly enough, but we were on tour. Like, when are we gonna make an album when we're doing shows? So it just kind of he was like, if Russell really wanted us to make an album, he would have pulled us off tour and put us in the studio again. So it's just like typical. I mean, you know, all indications point to Russell Simmons not being the most ethical of human beings in a variety of ways. So no surprise there. But yeah, it definitely there was some BS happening there.
You think Blair Underwood's like, man,
I mean, probably not.
do you think people still remember him from that movie? They're like, yeah, you played Russell Simmons.
I mean, look, if I think about Blair Underwood, Crush Groove is like the second or third thing that comes up in my brain. So I can't be
Wait,
the only
what's
person.
first?
LA Law.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about where Set It Off come in?
He wasn't Set It Off. I forgot.
So
Man.
not very high for you, but
Yeah.
I just watched it recently, so that's why I
Okay.
remember. Okay, so Paul's Boutique, 1989. This is the album that we're focusing on in our telling of this Beastie Boys story. And it is a left turn because they do not want to still be this image that they've created themselves as. I don't know at this point if they're into that accountability stage yet because pop culture is still moving in a certain direction, and
Yeah.
I don't think there was forces at will asking them to kind of look within yet because they're
Right.
just still famous dudes,
Right.
celebrities.
Famous young dudes.
And so, but it is clear that they realize that unless they change, they will be seen as kind of Def Jam puppets and not really artists themselves. And they were actually trying to become a band before the Beasties ever existed, before they even met Rick Rubin. So the idea of like, no, we can actually do this without these dudes who are kind of screwing up our careers as much as they created the celebrity of it. And I'm sure if you ask Rick Rubin and Russell Simmons, they're like, yeah, without us, like, where would they have been? And then, so now it's, let's create this second album. 3 years and a different sound actually changes their place in the game because this album does not sell. Like, there's
Yeah.
not like as well received as it is now. I listen to it and I go, okay, what are the singles on this thing? Like, what, and it's obviously very, very famous or maybe infamous for being as sample heavy as it is. And but ultimately people now recognize it. But when it dropped, it was almost
It
like,
caught a brick.
yeah, it's almost like where did our guys go and why did they change the way that they did?
Right. Well, that's the thing. I mean, first of all, like the Beastie Boys ended up getting out of their Def Jam contract, um, and signing with Capitol. I would, you know, if they had made License to Ill Part 2, that would have caught a brick too. And they would have never recovered from it, because then people would have been like, oh, the Beastie Boys are a novelty act. Like the same thing that ultimately happened to Run DMC would have happened to the Beastie Boys, which is that they would have gotten played out super, super fast. Um, what, Paul's Boutique was not a hit when it first came out. I think it went gold initially, and it took like 5 years to go platinum. So definitely not a big success, but it changed the way that they were regarded by critics, because it was such like a sample heavy, like dense pop culture kind of record. Um, like, it kind of it set the stage for them to kind of do this. And obviously they never made another album that was as big as License to Ill, but they ended up having like, you know, 20 years of consistently decent selling records. And, they're able to kind of sell out arenas because they took that left turn, and they caught the brick, they absorbed the brick. This is back in the days when you didn't immediately get dropped from a label if your record didn't sell. So, it allowed them to kind of build their audience back up and reverse course.
So the reception is much better from critics who, I'm sure a lot of critics were kind of like my dad when, when he was telling me what he thought about the Beasties, but they resonated with kids. And the second album, there's a respect level, and I'm sure across hip hop as well, who and some people in hip hop may have been like, these guys are they're not going to last. But then the second album comes out, and it's the music is Dust Brothers,
Right.
who had been creating some tracks for their own instrumental album until the Beasties heard them. They were out in LA at this point, right?
Right.
And they were like, no, we want to use those albums. So a lot of like the creation of this album is based on that. And then yeah, like we said, sample heavy. It's so funny how the number I have is somewhere between 105 and 300 samples. Like it's so people don't even really know that like this might be something, but we're not sure exactly. Right. So do you remember listening to it the first time?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, initially I thought the Beastie Boys were corny, and I don't know, maybe there was like a little militant person living inside my preteen self at the time, but I never liked License to Ill. I thought it was kind of like it was almost like a Weird Al version of what hip hop was to me. And I remember hearing Hey Ladies on the radio and being like, yo, this is kind of dope. It's got, like all of these weird samples and these sounds from other records that I'm kind of familiar with. And it has like a little sort of like 70s disco vibe to it, whatever. Like, this is kind of cool. I don't remember where I was when I heard Paul's Boutique for the first time, but I remember just being like, yo, this album is crazy. Just the production of it is pretty incredible. And I got to give the Beastie Boys some credit there, because if you listen to all the other stuff that the Dust Brothers did, like the Dust Brothers were doing like Tone Loc and Young MC, and those Tone Loc and Young MC records sound nothing like Paul's Boutique.
Yeah.
So there had to have been some kind of collaboration there. But yeah, I mean, just from like I'm 13, 14 years old. Like, I have my aunts and uncles and my grandparents like record collection, so I know a lot of these old records that are getting sampled. So just from like the standpoint of being able to recognize, oh, that's this record, oh, that's that record, it was I was interested from the first time I heard it.
So Headcase said he remembers a quote from Chuck D, who said it was a dirty secret in the black community that Paul's Boutique had the best beats.
I mean, maybe in the hip hop community. I wouldn't say in the black community at large, because black people were not fucking with the Beastie Boys in general. So, okay, Chuck D. But I mean, but if you do look at hip hop production around that time, like Public Enemy, Beastie Boys. Like, it's funny because they mentioned this in the book. To me, Paul's Boutique and 3 Feet High and Rising by De La Soul are kind of like
Mm-hmm.
album cousins because it
Yeah.
feels like they're kind of cut from the same cloth. Like there's a little bit of
Mm-hmm.
comedy there. There's a huge mixture of samples. It's kind of quirky. So to me, those two albums, and Paul's Boutique came out like 6 months after De La Soul's album. Although I believe the Beastie Boys said their album was finished before De La Soul's was. Whatever. Um, those two albums are very similar to me.
So the only song that really charted was the lead single "Hey Ladies," as far as I
Right.
can tell,
Yeah.
and nothing else came out from that album. And I kind of wonder, like, if you are at the highest of highs, and a lot of celebrity is so artificial in of itself, and then there's some anticipation, and you come out again, and I wouldn't say they were the lowest of lows because they are still very well known, but you're trying to achieve the success of that first album, and it just doesn't happen. And I wonder what their self-esteem, kind of how they felt about themselves as a group, if they thought about quitting at that point. Like, I wonder where they were when the reception to this album, when they really figured out that this was not going to be a hit.
I mean, that's a good question. I would love to ask one of them that question. By, Ad Rock lives in the city still. If I see him walking around, be
You gotta
like,
ask them.
Orbits, yeah, I got a question for you. Want to be on a podcast? Uh, um, but yeah, I mean, it's also important to note just how much hip hop changed between
Yeah.
License to Ill and Paul's Boutique. Because, License to Ill comes out, we're in the middle of like the Run DMC Raising Hell era. Hip hop is still very much like, posing like this and, wearing your gold chain and all that stuff. And then, Rakim comes out and BDP comes out and, they're just all NWA comes out. There's all of these changes. So the genre just evolved so quickly. It kind of just kicked all of the previous regime's artists out.
Yeah, how can
Um,
you really understand what to do when the trends change so
so
fast?
fast. Right.
And we did our LL episode that dropped last week. And maybe after even doing this Beastie Boys research, I have so much more respect for LL even than we did, because like the longevity that he's had. And then you realize, because we were talking about how Panther is he's kind of in the same, not from a sales perspective, but the respect or how hot he is
Hmm.
changes so quickly with just Panther dropping, and then he's got to already have a comeback album at the young age of 25 or whatever with
Right.
Mama Said Knock You Out. Like,
Even that,
that's
I
how
think he was like
fast things.
22.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's how fast things are changing. So 3 years in hip hop is like 20 years,
Yeah,
really.
like 30 years in any other genre. Yeah.
Yeah,
At
so
that time. Yeah.
fascinating look back. Okay.
Mm.
So I looked at the album sales again. Like, your numbers are probably better, but License to Ill does over 10. Paul's Boutique eventually, I think, is now double platinum, but took a while to get there. Check Your Head comes out in 92, and that does about the same sales overall, but it was a more immediate hit when it
Mhm.
dropped than Paul's Boutique. Ill Communication and Hello Nasty are actually their second and third highest selling albums, 94 and 98. And then my favorite, To the Five Boroughs, it's platinum, but it also was not a giant hit. And then The Mix Up and Hot Sauce Committee Part 2, those are, the at that point, by the time Hot Sauce Committee comes out, which we'll talk about at the end of this, MCA is already sick, I
Right, he's
believe.
already ill, yeah.
So they're not able to do all of the stuff. And, there's a funny story in the book that the reason why it's called Hot Sauce Committee Part 2 is because the whatever hard drive they had Part 1 on, they just lost it. And I think
it'll turn up.
well, I mean, now we're 15 years in on Hot
Yeah.
Sauce Committee Part 1. Somebody has to have it. But
Maybe my dude who has that Wu-Tang album.
yeah, exactly. But just the idea that there's no other copy of this thing. Like we have one copy, and so it was originally supposed to be a double album, or part 1 comes out at some point, and then part 2 comes out some point later. So we're
Right.
just like, nope, we just only have part 2. So here's part 2, Hot Sauce Committee Part 2.
Who knows?
That's hilarious. Okay. So let's do our Grammys Redux segment. Now, the evolution of when you have artists who've been around for this long, the evolution of the Grammys as well, because the Grammys didn't even have a rap album category for a little while.
Right.
So I won't do all of them because there's a lot. But 1993, best rap performance by a duo or group. Here are your nominees: House of Pain, Jump Around; Criss Cross, Jump. There's a lot of jumping going on.
A lot of jumping.
In 93. Public Enemy's Greatest Misses; Beastie Boys, Check Your Head; Arrested Development, Tennessee.
Just going through those in my head. I would. It's gonna be either Tennessee or Jump Around for me. Jump Around is just kind of one of those all-timer kind of songs. Also, apparently, Jump would not have existed without Jump Around.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I guess Jermaine Dupri got a hand on an early copy of Jump Around and basically ripped it off for Jump.
Oh my God. Come on,
Yep.
JD.
Yep.
The Don Chi.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, man. I think I'm going House of Pain on that, but the rest of Development a close second.
Yeah, Arrested Development wins. House of Pain, that song sort of lasted throughout the test of time. Like you still hear that song every once in a while.
If you are a drunk white person, that is your jam. If you are a drunk white person over the age of 40.
Yeah.
If you're a drunk white dude over the age of 40.
When's the last time you heard Jump? I have not heard that song in a long time.
Yeah. Maybe at like a basketball game or something.
The Mac Daddy and the Daddy Mac.
Daddy Mac.
And so BC were nominated. Then 1999, they're nominated again for Intergalactic. This is kind of a powerhouse of the late 90s when it comes to the songs nominated. Jermaine Dupri and Jay-Z, Money Anything; Lord Tariq and Peter Guns, Deja Vu, Uptown Baby; Rosa Parks, Outcast; and Ghetto Superstar, Praz, Maya, and ODB, along with the Beastie Boys and Intergalactic.
Outcast, baby.
Yeah, how does the Beastie Boys win this one? Of all the years for them to win, this is the one that they won.
The Grammy Awards people are always like, man, we should have given them an award back in the day for the stuff that was better. Let's give them a late one now. So I think that was the rationale there. Outkast was still kind of on the come up. And eventually they'd win like 11 million Grammys. But yeah, I mean, Intergalactic, which while it's a very fun song, is not the best of that bunch.
No. And you know what's kind of amazing is I just remember, for whatever reason out here, Deja Vu was huge. It was a giant song out here.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm in New York, so it was absolutely enormous out here.
Oh, I can imagine it's enormous out there, but in the Bay Area, I'm like, what do we have to do with Peter Guns and Lord Tariq here? But
that's crazy. Hey, look, I was at the New Edition concert last night, and before they came on, the DJ played Uptown Baby.
Were there any opening acts, or was it just a DJ?
Nah, it was just a DJ, and I mean, not to sidetrack, but they played for like damn near 3.5 hours.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Wait, so how long was the DJ set before Boyz II Men and New Edition and Tony came out?
Like 25 minutes.
Okay, so it wasn't that long.
Yeah.
Because I went to a I have to admit this one on air. Puff Daddy and the Family. They did that one tour
before you knew.
Well, how long ago was that? Like when they did that last tour?
They did a last tour.
Yeah, they did. I want to say it was like 2017, 2018, something like that.
Okay.
So obviously Puff Daddy was there, Lil Kim was there, Mace was there. Like all the groups were there. I remember we saw 112 was like hanging out in one like near where my office was. So like the all they were all there. And the thing that I remember most is kind of figuring out how early should we show up, because we know that those dudes are not going to get on stage on time, and there wasn't an opening act, but it was just the DJ.
Mhm.
And so we're like, okay, we'll get out there. It was me and my my friend Lindsay, and like they played for like over an hour. The DJ played for over an hour. I think it was like a 7:30 start time. The actual concert probably doesn't start closer to like 9 o'clock. And so we're just in the audience for like an hour and a half, and it's the funnest, most fun time. And you know what it reminded me of? And this is even worse because, if this is 7 or 8 years ago, I'm still in my younger 40s, but now it would be kind of ridiculous. But it felt like the uncle and aunties like club is what it felt like.
Well,
Because
that's what
think about what the bad boy audience is, right? At this point in that time,
people in their 40s and 50s.
right? So
Yeah.
it's like Mary J. Blige comes on and people go crazy,
Yeah.
and so but it was really, really fun. So I can imagine that was a lot of fun last night.
Yeah, I mean, it was the same thing, maybe plus like 5 years. But pretty much everybody in the crowd was over 40. The DJ came on right at 8. DJ stopped at 8:25. New Edition came on at 8:30. There was an intermission between, like, sort of before the quote unquote encore, where the DJ played for like another 15 minutes. But we didn't get out of the arena until probably midnight. So
Hey, man.
they did a solid 3 hours.
All right, 2001, the Beastie Boys for Alive. I had to go find this song. I didn't even know what this song
Oh, I know
was.
that song. It was on like the greatest hits record.
Yeah. De La Soul and Redman for Ooh, which is an amazing
That's a
song.
banger.
Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Corrupt and Nate Dogg, the next episode. Jay-Z and UGK, Big Pimpin', and Dr. Dre and Eminem, Forgot About Dre.
I mean, that's a De La Soul for me.
Yeah, the De La Soul song is probably my favorite song, and then I'd go with the Jay-Z song after that. But Dr. Dre and Eminem, of course, they're
Of course.
2001. You were not beating Dr. Dre in 2001.
No. Or Eminem.
All right, now fast forward to 2005. This is an interesting list of songs here.
Good boy.
The Black Eyed Peas, Let's Get It Started. And let's not give them slack necessarily. Well, let's not give them credit, because that song had a different name before it became Let's Get It Started.
Yes, it did.
Hammer was like, come on, guys. You can't be doing that. Well, I know what your song is called. Beastie Boys, Check It Out. Roots, Don't Say Nothing. Snoop and Pharrell, Drop It Like It's Hot. Terror Squad, Lean Back.
I want to say my favorite song there is probably Drop It Like It's Hot. But that's not even like, that's like best rap performance by a group, right?
Yeah.
Like Pharrell's not even really on that song.
Isn't he like doing stuff with his cheeks and
that's like whatever. I mean, if I'm gonna give any one of those to the Beastie Boys, it would have been that one. But yeah, I mean, Drop It Like It's Hot is a banger.
I really like Don't Say Nothing because my guy Black Thought creates mumble rapping in this song.
It's funny.
Maybe,
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say maybe I shouldn't give him credit because I hate mumble rapping today.
Yeah, I don't know. I remember this was in the middle of the Opinions days, and I remember somebody writing a review of that Roots album and being really upset that Black Thought is A, that he's mumbling on the track, and B, he's talking about like cutting the check and all that stuff. And I was like, well, I didn't know this then, but I realized after the fact, like that whole chorus is from an old school, like a super old school hip hop record.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Oh, he's just ahead.
Yeah.
All right, now the only time, as far as I can tell, that they've been nominated for best rap album, because best rap album as a category did not exist, was 2005, and here are your nominees: Nelly for Suit. Sweat
Sweat and
didn't get
Suit.
nominated.
Yeah.
Suit got nominated. I wonder if you ask them, you're like, okay, what makes Suit so much better than
Better.
Sweat?
Right.
I don't think they could have answered that question. They're like, I don't know. We just chose one. LL Cool J for The Definition, which we talked about. Not his finest work.
Not his best work.
Jay-Z for The Black Album. Beastie Boys to The Five Boroughs, and Kanye for The College Dropout.
College Dropout.
College Dropout won.
Yeah. Black Album is dope.
I like the Black Album slightly better than the College Dropout, only because you're talking about levels of rap skill. But you know, we were right there with the College Dropout. We were not yet 30, and we were like, this is some cool shit. And so we can say that. And you know, maybe I don't think of I haven't really listened to the album in a long time, so I don't know how I would think about it today.
The way we felt about Kanye in 2003, 2004 is much different than the way that we feel about Kanye in 2026.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, Kanye wins, and To the Five Boroughs, like I said, my favorite Beastie's album. Though I know that is probably not the majority there. Okay, now let's talk about MCA, Adam Yauch, July of 2009. His is when the news broke that he had cancer. He said that he had a cancerous tumor in his parotid gland. It's a salivary gland,
right?
And a nearby lymph node. The band immediately canceled their headlining slot at Lollapalooza and postponed the release of the Hot Sauce Committee Part 2. Yauch underwent surgery and radiation. He also, because of his beliefs at that point, he was a Buddhist. He also integrated Tibetan medicine and veganism into his recovery process. And I think there were some rumors a couple of years later that he was better, but he was like, nah, like this is not, I am not over this thing.
Right.
And then by April of 2012, the Beasties are inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Adam Yauch was too ill, so he could not go. And Mike D and Ad Rock read a letter from him. You know, very, very sentimental. Less than a month later, he passes away at the age of 47, survived by his wife and their daughter.
Right.
What do you remember about this time frame and his passing?
I mean, I definitely, remember him being sick and feeling like something was weird because they did end up putting out the Hot Sauce Committee album, but the Beastie Boys were never actually, they didn't like promote the record. They didn't really do a whole lot of stuff. And I remember there was this whole like mini feature or like something that had Elijah Wood and a couple other people like playing the Beastie Boys, and the Beastie Boys weren't actually in it, which is kind of like a first indication that something's wrong.
Yeah.
And you know, I mean, still to have him pass away at like the young age that he did was, very jarring. And I want to say him and Donna Summer died on the same day or something like that. But I think they were both in shortly after. She died on May 17th, 2012. So they died within a week of each other. So it was just kind of like a weird time. But I mean, Adam Yauch was, young. Yeah, just kind of like, again, like really weird. And, there is now like an Adam Yauch Way in New York City. There's like a Beastie Boys mural. I actually just realized I'm going to reach over here. Grab this hoodie, which comes from my buddy Tom Sladek, who works for Oscilloscope, which is the film company founded by Adam Yauch. And very coincidental that that hoodie is there. And I think I got that hoodie in 2012.
Wow.
Because I went, they had an office in Brooklyn. I think it's still there. and I went to visit Tom, who's a friend of mine in Yauch. I think he only passed away maybe like a month or two before, and was still coming to the office pretty regularly when he was ill. And I think his staff kind of knew that, he was nearing the end.
Yeah.
But, he was able to keep all of that stuff very private, in sort of the days before social media was really like a big, big thing.
Yeah, and doing this episode and kind of doing the look back and the research and listening to them talk about him, it was not, not that I had a strong relationship with Adam Yauch back in the day, but kind of revisiting who he was, it was kind of inspiring, man. Like, this dude was open-minded and not necessarily, you know, down to do all of the things that maybe you do to take advantage of your celebrity,
Celebrity, right.
and just a very interesting guy as far as his beliefs, and him going and uh studying from the Tibetan monks and such to see how they deal with conflict and those type of things, how they can remain peaceful in not non-peaceful situations and scenarios. Pretty amazing. And I know he did some charity concerts and such,
Hmm.
or he hosted them, and was able to make a lot of money for the charities and such. So just such an interesting guy. And in retrospect, I kind of wish I had a little bit of more of a relationship with him as the Beasties were aging up, but I just was never really into their music as much as everybody else was. But I feel like, and I don't know what you think about this, but I'm sure you have a lot of graphic T-shirts of different artists and celebrities and
I
such,
do.
and I kind of hold back sometimes because I look at these T-shirts and I go, okay, if I rock this Wu-Tang shirt, what does that say? Does it say I'm a Wu-Tang super fan? Because I'm not really a Wu-Tang super fan. Like, I like the Wu-Tang a lot, but I wouldn't say that, if they come out here to play, I'm buying a ticket first day. Same with like Run DMC. I was like, I was a little too young to really be super duper into Run DMC. And by the time I got into hip hop, they were already old news. So I
Right.
don't know if I should rock this Run DMC shirt because they're not my guys. But LL, Pac, like those are my guys. So I'm like, yeah, of course I'll wear this t-shirt. And I thought about that because I'm like, after reading this book, watching that live show they did, going back through the music and just really revisiting their career, I think I can rock a Beasties shirt now. That's how I feel about them because of this episode of what we are doing.
I mean, I have a Beastie Boys t-shirt. I have Beastie Boys socks. Um, and I don't know if I've ever been like a super fan. I've always been a fan. Like, I've bought all of their albums, at least the non-instrumental albums, bought those when they came out. Bought the book, you know, went to the event in Brooklyn where which they eventually filmed. Saw them perform back in '04, on the Five Boroughs tour, which I think also ended up being made into a movie. Um, so I've followed them. I think there's something intrinsic, like, about them being New Yorkers and me being a New Yorker. There's a relatability there, and also like they just seem like you can tell, like, some people get into music because it's going to make them rich and or famous, and
Mhm.
I guess that's fine. I think the Beastie Boys got into music because they love music, and they never really seemed to be like, yo, we want to be famous, we want to floss, we want to be like rich and extravagant and whatever. Like, they've always seemed very like down to earth and in it just to like for the spirit of music and the spirit of community. I mean, if I did actually see Ad Rock on the street, um, like, he seems like the type of person I would want to like have a cup of coffee with.
Yeah, yeah. And I will say I wouldn't even consider myself a super fan of their music. I'm a fan of those 3 men.
Men,
I
yeah,
is what it turns out to be, and their group and what they stood for and what they
right.
stand for today. That's what I became a super fan of. So I'm gonna
and,
have to
and
go
their
I'm gonna
evolution as people.
look, they're older than us,
Yeah.
and they are. I always say this. I'm always looking for clues into people who are older than me to give me an idea of how to age correctly and gracefully.
Yeah,
And
man.
I think those dudes are doing it right.
I agree.
As far as we can tell, we're not close to them, but as far as I can see their public persona, it feels like they're doing it right. And that's what I love to have learned from this episode is just those guys and what they stand for today versus what I just always assumed who they were when I was younger.
Right.
That change. So all right. So this is only our second live stream. We'll do some of these here and there. A lot of times
Yeah,
it'll be
it's fun.
because we have to adjust our schedules in some way, and so this sometimes it just works out to go live. But we'll do more of these. We won't do a lot of them. I still like the idea of not having to record directly and not being able to adjust anything on the fly if
Yeah.
we need to. But it is also fun to do it this way, and I want to shout out Headcase for hanging out with us. I think Headcase is coming out with some new music at some point, which I told him if he gets that thing pressed on vinyl, I'm day one hitting buy on that thing. So shout out to
That's what's up.
Headcase for hanging out with us.
Who we've
And
now known for like 20 something years.
I think he said in the chat that he's not 40 yet. So we knew him when he was like a
When he was a
teenager,
teenager. Yeah. That's
which is
insane.
crazy. All right, so we'll be back with the top 5 episode of our Beastie Boys journey here.
By the way, my no skips rating is a 10 for Paul's Boutique.
Oh, I totally forgot about that. It is high up on that list for me too. I don't know if I would give it a 10, but I was at least an 8 plus as I was re-listening to it.
Nice.
And I'm not an 8 plus with some of those other albums, which lean a little heavier on the rock stuff and but there are still some songs, as you will hear in my top 5, that I still ride with on those other albums. Okay, for Mike, I am Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.
All right.